When you work with large data collections, especially those stored in relational databases such as Access or SQL Server, it's likely that your data will be spread among several tables. For example, you could have a table of sales data that lists each month by its number, January's 1, February's 2, and so on. If you have the month's number in one table and a list of which month corresponds to which number in another, you can often create a relationship between those two tables and, in this case, use the month's name instead of its number. As an example, let's take a look at the data model within this Power Pivot file. So to do that, I'll click the Power Pivot tab on the ribbon and click the Power Pivot window button to display Power Pivot. When I do, the Power Pivot for Excel window opens, and I have two different tables in this data model. I have months and I have data. Let's take a look at the months table first. In this case, I have 12 rows, and those are the month names in English with the corresponding month ID number. January is 1, February is 2, and so on. In this table, the month ID field contains a unique value in each row, and it distinguishes that row from all other rows in the table. That means that it can be called a key field because you can use it to identify a single row within the data collection. Now let's take a look at the same data over in the data table. In this table, we have the order month field, and as you can see, not every row contains a unique value. Some orders are from January, which is month 1, others from February, month 2, and so on. However, we do know from the way that the calendar is composed that the values in the order month field will always be the numbers 1 through 12, and that means we can create a correspondence or a relationship between the column order month in this table and the column month ID in the other table. In other words, we can create a relationship. To do that, on the Design tab in the Power Pivot window, we click the Create Relationship button. Then, in the Create Relationship dialog box, we can select the table and the columns to identify the two fields that contain the same data. So in this case, the data table contains the order month field, and then the related lookup table is in the months table, and the related lookup column is the month ID. So again, just dropping this down a little bit so we can see the numbers in the order month column. The order month column contains the numbers 1 through 12 corresponding to the month in which the order was placed. In the months table, the month ID field contains the numbers 1 through 12, and those correspond to the months January, February, March, and so on. So with this relationship defined, we can click Create, and Power Pivot creates a relationship between those two tables. So how does this affect us? Well, what it allows us to do is to create a pivot table, and instead of displaying month numbers, we can display the month names by using the relationship. So to do that, we click the Home tab on the ribbon and then click the Pivot Table button. That puts us back into Excel, and we can create the pivot table on a new worksheet and click OK. So now we have a new worksheet with a pivot table, and I'll just create a very simple pivot table based on this data. I will have the store ID in the row labels area, and then the order month below it. And yes, this will show a number. I'm going to change that in a bit. I just wanted you to see what it would look like before we use the related table. So we have store ID, order month, and then I can put total in the values area. So now let's see what happens when I use the month name field from the months table. So I will remove order month from the row labels area, and now I will click the expand button next to the months table, and then drag month name to below store ID on the row labels area. When I do, the month names appear in the pivot table, but they're sorted into alphabetical order. However, if I click one of the cells that contain a month name, and then on the Home tab, click the Sort and Filter button, and click Sort A to Z, Excel knows to sort them into proper month order because it recognizes the series. Creating a relationship between two tables lets you expand the types of data you can include in your pivot table. In this example, we used the relationship between the data and months tables to change a month's number to its name, which made the summary easier to understand.